Good evening and welcome to another round of the House of Esports F1 2022 League. We are going to be racing around the Hungaroring this evening and looking forward to seeing these guys race around a track that is arguably one of the most high downforce tracks on the calendar. Second only, I think, to Monaco, although Monaco doesn't really count as a high downforce track because it's so slow. Looking forward to seeing the guys pound around the Hungaroring. And hopefully it all goes well. Obviously, we had those pretty nasty scenes at the end of the last race in Baku, but there have been penalties doled out. Bunkies has dropped down to the Pro-Am category from the Pro category after that incident, as well as will be serving a race ban at this point. Quinton has gotten a quali ban. There was a race ban in place as well as a second quali ban, but due to the extenuating circumstances, a decision was taken to show a little bit of leniency towards him, he was not the person who threw the first punch as such. So a little bit happening in the background with the stewards. I will not be able to release the standings right after this race as I normally do, at least to the guys in the WhatsApp group and so on and so forth, because I have to rebuild the entire penalty system. So yeah, that's a little unfortunate. It will take a little while to get that right. But once that's right, then things should. It's a pretty interesting little section of the racing league tools that I use to manage the league, and I'm still getting to grips with it and making sure everything is running as it should. So, quali session has started. We're 30 seconds in, and no one has. Oh, someone has just gone out now. So let's hop across to the feed itself. 11 people on the grid this evening, so a pretty quiet grid. Unfortunately, load shedding catching quite a few people. A couple of people having real life commitments that are essentially getting in the way of their racing in general. So a couple of people having to pull out of the season. So yeah, unfortunately, that attrition that we see in every F1 league that I've ever been involved in has started hitting quite hard. So between the load shedding and just the general attrition, we are seeing a couple of people struggle to make it. And so we are going to start seeing slightly compressed grids. Hopefully we will be able to get a few more reserves and shuffle people around a little bit more, just to get the grid a little bit more full. But this is one of those tracks where even with a full grid, you generally get a pretty wide spread of people, and with ghosting on rather, it can be quite an easy track to just find yourself completely alone. So the Hungaroring, quite an interesting track. As you can see by the shape of it, it's got some very awkward corners. This one that Common is going through is one of the worst as far as awkwardness is concerned. And then a nice long radius right-hander goes onto the pit straight. You start that one in fourth and accelerate all of the way through it, and then down the pit straight. Highest downforce of the traditional tracks, non-city tracks, as I said, not Monaco. Ooh, and Common going very deep there, and that's going to be the end of his lap already. So we'll follow Venom around. DRS zone starting halfway through that corner, so you're still turning the car when you have to open that DRS flap through that corner. It can become very, very, very awkward. And now heading up in, that's the end of sector 1 at 27.247 as he goes around this very, very strange uphill right-hander, and a little bit of a weird one there. Not where we expect to see people spin on that corner. Normally we see them spin on the inside of that corner. Trilogy having an issue through the fast fast left-hander, which will ride on board with one puzzle just so you can see it. It's a very fast left-hander. It's entirely blind at the apex, so without the line on, it can be quite difficult to hit it right. Just going to send an invite to Ghost quickly, who has managed to get on to come and join us. Looks like everyone else is pretty much in the lobby already. And one puzzle getting out of the way. I do believe he is on an outlap. Warak is on a fast lap. Corsair and Marsh in the Alpha Tauris looking pretty slick there as they come to the end of the lap. Corsair charging up a little bit, so possibly didn't quite get his outlap right. Maybe or maybe he's on an outlap. We'll see as he comes across the line. Okay, so no, there he is, into second place, a 128.633, and Marsh goes even faster, a 118.916. What? Okay, so Corsair, not a great lap there. Humid 121.063. Gokes going to the top of the times with a 118.683. He wasn't entirely sure he was going to make it this evening, as there was a substation that blew. So good to see him on the grid and immediately quick on this track. So obviously been doing some practice. But Gokes currently out in front, Marsh in second, Warak in third. In the Haas, Humid in fourth. Let's see what Warak can do at the end. We've missed the first sector. It looks like he was a little slow through there, but almost 2 seconds off the pace, according to the telemetry. Alright, I'm just checking a couple of things while I remember. Just making sure that everything is logging correctly. It does look like it. So that is good to see. So yeah, people starting to go faster now. We're not seeing so many of those 128s. I don't know if that was an outlap time. Corsair going fastest, 116.194. Marsh going even faster, 116.055. So this track rubbering in incredibly quickly. Warak having trouble going into the pits there for a moment. Scotty Barreras is coming towards the end of his lap, and he will come through. Where is the finish line? It's quite far down the straight there. So Scott Barreras goes to the top of the time, so 1:15.694. So a great time there. 4/10 up from Marsh, and I'm sure Marsh is going to be looking for another lap. And another quick lap indeed. Currently going through the second sector. I don't believe he is on a lap at the moment. No, definitely not with that little ERS. So yeah, Marsh currently needs to get into the pits, get new tires on, get back out there and do as quick a lap as possible. He has some competition in the form of Scott, and we'll see what he can do with that Alpha Tauri once he's come into the pits and heads out again. Silence obviously joining us just recently, so he's going out now to start his outlap, and we'll see how he does. So Silence coming to the end of his outlap and heading down towards turn number one. Turn number one is a little bit of an awkward braking zone. It's quite difficult to see where you're needing to brake. You throw it into the corner, try and take it as late an apex as possible, because this is a long run down, or long-ish run down to turn number two. Turn number two is quite a nice one to get right, and you throw yourself very quickly into turn number 3, which is that quick right hand kink. Then up the hill towards turn number 5. Sorry, turn number 6, and then this is turn number 7 if I am counting correctly. Turn number 7, obviously that uphill right-hander that we saw someone spin on earlier. Silence going quite well through that first section into the second sector now, which is actually almost the less technical sector on this track. A couple of higher speed corners, you have to take them as fast as possible. 56.271 at the end of the second sector as he comes into the final couple of corners. This very awkward left-hander, if you touch that curb on the inside, you will spin. If you get on the power a little bit too quickly on the outside of the exit, you will spin, and then into the final corner, which Silence does miss the apex a little bit, so this is not likely to be as good a time as I'm sure he is capable of. 119.025, so a massive spread of times on the field at the moment. 115.694 up at the top and a 121.063 at the bottom. Humid running a very slow time there, and I'm sure he is going to be trying to push as hard as he can in that Mercedes to try and get this right. He is currently starting his lap, and so let's see how he does. We'll ride on board with him and just see if he can salvage this quali session a little bit. 121.063 is definitely not the time we expect to see from him. Currently, what is that, 5.4 seconds off the pace. So as you can see, coming through the second sector and struggling once again, so he'll try and charge up as much as possible before the end of his lap and go again. But Human struggling with this lap in the second sector. He does like a twitchier car, and you can see that rear end does not want to stay behind the front. So yeah, Humid having a couple of issues through that second sector especially, and we'll have to see whether, oh, that is very close. Humid staying on the racing line. Unfortunately, that did hinder, who is that? That is Marsh. So yeah, Humid getting in the way of Marsh. Marsh going into the pits now. That looked like it was on a lap, just with the way that that was going. Not sure if he doesn't have fuel to go again, but yeah, Humid very much on the racing line there as they were coming through that second to last corner. And it does look like he is starting another hot lap. So technically speaking, he was allowed to be there, but that is going to be one of those borderline incidents that needs to be basically checked up in general. The last couple of corners are always difficult for checking for impeding, as we see, who was that? I think that was Venom going a little bit wide through there just to get out of the way of Humid, and Humid is having a much better lap this time that we're not riding on board with him. Coming through the second sector, it looks a lot smoother, a lot more planted. Mercedes looks like it is going the speed it should be. 3.5 seconds down on his previous time. He was 5.4 seconds down on his previous lap from the pole time, so still some time to find in this final sector. He needs to nail those traction zones and get around this corner as tightly as possible, open the corner as soon as possible, and there he does exactly that, and will go to second place, a 116.005. So that time by Scott Barreras is hanging on quite well, considering it was set earlier in the lap as in the quali session as well. The track will be rubbering in. If I recall correctly, this track does end up quite green before the Formula 1 weekend arrives, and so yeah, there is quite a bit of evolution. 5/10 up now by Scott Barreras, and yeah, showing his pace in that Ferrari. We do not have a forecast of rain for the race itself, so I'm sure this is going to be the sort of pace that we're likely to see from the guys in the race itself. Marsh currently on an outlap in that AlphaTauri. Obviously, he had that moment with Humid earlier on. The Mercedes is in front of him, so hopefully Humid doesn't get in the way again this time. But Marsh coming through warming up his tires now, getting those front tires especially ready, and I think Humid has run out of fuel. He does need to get out of the way because there is no way he's on a lap this time, and he does go into the pits. A little bit of a wide line into the pits there, but that should be absolutely fine as Marsh now comes through the final corner and will gun it across the finish line to start his lap. So Marsh coming down towards the first corner will break at about the 80-meter mark down into the first corner, hits the apex a little bit early, lets the car run a little bit wide on the outside of the exit of the corner, but not as wide as I would probably have expected. Goes through that next corner, turn 2, turn 3, depending on how you're counting, and it looks like he's going all right, to about 1.8 tenths up on his previous time. Previous time was 5 tenths down on the top time, so it looks like he is doing quite well. He's got some time to find in the second and third sectors, so let's see what he can do as he throws that car into the right-hander. Doesn't look like he's taking as much curb on the outside there as I would expect, although I do know that these curbs can be quite scary if you are in a slightly looser setup. So maybe running a slightly looser setup to try and get the pace out of the front of the car, and just deciding to take it a little bit easy on the outside curbs just to avoid any sort of unnecessary spins. Good late apex there, wide onto that exit curve there, maximizing the run down to the line, and obviously lost a lot of time in that final sector previously because made up 4 tenths of a second in that final sector alone. So yeah, Marsh going to the top of the times. Fastest sector 2, fastest sector 3, fastest sector 1 still belongs to Scott Barreras, so not quite getting it there, but yeah, looking good for the top of the quali sheet. First, Marsh. Second, Scott Barreras. Third, Humid. Fourth, Corsair coming across the line now to start a lap, I do believe. Venom in fifth. Not coming in sixth. Trilogy in seventh. Trilogy on an outlap at the moment, coming towards the end of his outlap, so we'll follow him around just now. Worm Puzzle in eighth. Gokes in ninth. Silence in 10th. Borak 11th. And Quinton with that quali ban in 12th position. So just making sure that Quinton can load his setup. Sometimes the game is a little weird about not going out during quali, so it can sometimes fail to load a setup properly. So we're getting Quinton out there so he can try and get around to the start finish line at the end of quali, just so that his setup loads up properly. It should be fine, as he should get there at the end of quali. Obviously it shouldn't kill him before then, and at least he's out on the track, which means his setup is loaded. Park Vermeer will have saved the setup and he will be running a proper setup, just in case the game decides to try and give him a default setup in the race itself, which default setup around this track is going to be horrific. So yeah, just getting him out there to get that setup loaded, and he will not complete a full lap, and so that is generally how we look at serving the quali bans. So yeah, there we go. So Scott Burrow is coming through at the moment for his final lap of the quali session. 30 seconds to go, and I am going to have to minimize just now just to swap over to inverter power. I'm keeping an eye on things, but as Scott Barreras goes through turn, I'm pretty sure this is called turn number 2, so that second kink just after turn number 1 isn't counted as a separate turn, so it's 2, 3. This is 4 up here, and then turn 5 is the long right hand uphill, which Scott is going through now. Looks nice and smooth through there, coming into 5 and 6, which is the chicane, and coming up to the back of common. 7, fast left-hander. Ooh, that looked like a little bit of a snap through 7 and going into 8. Gokes has left the session. Hopefully that is not his power dying again. As I said, he did have a little bit of a power issue earlier on. Scott Burrows going a little bit faster in the second sector, a tenth and a half up, so he might get the pole time if he does manage to maintain that, or even go faster through this final sector. Let's see what he does as he gets onto the pit straight. Looks like a good line out of there, comes across the line into first place. Not as big a gap as we've seen previously, so Marsh and Scott should actually have a pretty good battle out in front. Hopefully those cars are not geared entirely towards one lap pace, and they do have the pace in the race as well. Hopefully they don't have overheating tires through the race itself. But Scott running into first place with a 1:15.347, Marsh in second a 1:15.479, Human in third a 1:16.005. No one is likely to catch up to him. Quinton coming across the line now, and that should be the end of the quali session. Slowing right down at the line, so quite an interesting one there. But there you have it. Scott in first, Marsh in second, Human in third, Venom in fourth, Corsair in fifth, Common, Worm Puzzle, Trilogy, Gokes, Silence our top 10, and then Warrak in the 11th, and Quinton obviously with that quali ban in 12th position. So race director not showing anything particularly noteworthy. We're just going to minimize quickly, swap across to inverter, and I'll be right back. Alrighty, and we are back with a couple of seconds to spare, so that's nice. That has gone well. Just making sure that there aren't too many things running off the inverter in the form of my various laptops and such that I use for telemetry. So yeah, back into Gokes, I will absolutely add you again as soon as the lobby loads up. Currently we're staring at T-Pose Mechanics. There we go, lobby has started up, friends. Gokes and invited, so hopefully you manage to get in before the race start and your AI doesn't cause havoc on the race start, but let's see how it goes. Okay, Coax has joined, that's a good sign. So I'm not sure if we're actually waiting for players or if people are actually taking the time that they should be to do their strategies and so on. So yeah, good to see that hopefully it is people doing their strats and such, and there is the 30-second mark. So yeah, 30 seconds until the start of the race, until the lights start going on. Everyone should still be in the lobby, so we shouldn't have any AI shooting off the line before anyone else can get in. But yeah, so this is looking good so far. 5 red lights and a long pause before we get underway for the Hungarian Grand Prix. A Haas shooting to the middle. That looks like someone who has disconnected. I do believe that is I think that might be Gokes. Oh, there he is. He has just reconnected, going through the first corner, and I think I saw someone going to the inside there and possibly losing it. That appears to have been Human. Interesting there. Didn't look like he had contact or anything, just looks like he lost a little bit through that first corner. Corsair losing a couple of positions. Let's actually go to positions gained and lost. Quinton up 4 places from back of the grid already. Worm Puzzle in the other McLaren also doing incredibly well on that race start, getting getting up 4 positions, and looks like a pretty commanding run into there. Marsh and Scott are out in front, right on top of each other, haven't lost touch with each other, and yeah, not looking like a bad start at all. No one crashed out. Everyone does appear to be quite close together, so that's always good to see. Marsh and Scott on different strategies. So Marsh running the softer compound in the form of the medium tires. He will want to get past Scott as soon as possible and start putting distance between the two of them, and we are likely to see a move down towards turn 1 if this does go as planned. Marsh right on the back of that Ferrari, and you can see how much better his braking performance is with that stickier rubber. Looks at the wider line in, which will be a better line out. He should get a decent amount of pace out of there. Warwick spinning on that second to last corner, and Gokes spinning on that final corner. So the two Haas's not having a great time. Marsh going to the inside and performing a great pass on Scott Barreras, and he now needs to put some distance between them before that DRS gets enabled at the end of this current lap. Quinton and Trilogy switching positions, also with a tire difference between the two of them. So Quinton go for a harder tire strategy. Obviously starting at the very back of the grid, not necessarily the worst idea. Marsh is now starting to pull away on those medium tires. Those hard tires don't look as strong as you would expect, but that is also to be expected. Those hard tires are quite difficult to get up to temperature, and let's actually see if Scott has got them in the window. It does look like he does have them in the window, so he is going to be able to run those a little bit longer than Marsh ahead of him. He doesn't need to keep up as much as you would otherwise think. He will be on the faster compound at the end of the race when the car is a little bit more nimble, because it has less weight on it as well, so it doesn't necessarily have to push as hard as otherwise. And just remember that the DRS is only enabled at the end of this lap, so they're going through the DRS detection zone now. It won't do anything because of the fact that DRS is not enabled. So 1 second the gap already. So Marsh is making good with those medium tires, and he now just needs to maintain that gap, make sure there is more than a second between himself and Scott, make sure he doesn't get too much of a slipstream down the straights such that they are. Quinton and Trilogy both getting past Silence, so Silence having a little bit of problems, a couple of problems in the Alfa Romeo, and now has the attentions of Humid to try and deal with as well. Humid, after that spin in the first corner, now currently running from the back of the grid, and that looked like a very late lunge. Wasn't quite alongside Silence, may not have been necessarily entitled to that space, but Silence racing a nice, clean corner there. Yeah, Alf, absolutely, that final corner is indeed rough. I remember one of my previous seasons, I think at the RK League, funny enough, I think I had a pretty good race in Hungary. I was running in like 3rd or something, and I managed to spin it on the final corner at like in second to last lap, and it was one of those moments. But yeah, Humid now up into 9th position. Corsair quite close to Venom ahead of him. So that AlphaTauri hunting down the Alpine at the moment, and wanting to get past, I'm sure, quite quickly. Corsair and Venom both on the hard tires, so no tire difference to give Corsair an advantage here. So he's going to have to do his best. He will get DRS, so let's just check. There it is, DRS light, or DRS wide open there as he heads down there. No bubbles tonight. Yes, indeed, he has a previous commitment, so unfortunately wasn't able to join us tonight. I must say, if Marsh, Bubbles, Scott, and Madwell were all racing at the same time, and obviously Humid is fairly quick as well when he hasn't spun it on the first corner. I mean, that would be an epic race. We'd have, I'm sure, a 5-way battle for the top spot of the podium. So yeah, looking forward to the race that we do end up with everyone together. But for now, Marsh and Scott Barreras out in front. Marsh 2.4 seconds ahead. Corsair right on the back of Venom. Venom right on the back of Common. We have a spinner in the form of Silence coming out of turn number 4, 5. Wait, I can't count now. Yeah, 5. So coming out of 5, looks like he just had a spin at the top of the hill there. Venom is now much closer to Common than the last lap. So let's see what he does. He will get DRS, which will allow him to obviously defend against Corsair as Marsh puts in fastest lap after fastest lap. I believe Silence's tires are a little bit hot, but let's keep an eye on what's happening in front of us first. As the DRS zone comes to an end, is he going to go for it into the first corner? He is indeed. This is a double DRS zone, so a single DRS detection point, and you get 2 spurts of DRS, and not going for the move. Venom deciding not to go for the move into turn 1, and that has brought Humid right on top of him. Looks like he takes a tight defensive line into the first part of that corner complex, and then goes for a decent line through the second part. Humid still right on top of him though, and will be suffering a little bit with the dirty air. Oh, sorry, not Humid, Corsair right on the back of him will be suffering with the dirty air there a little bit, but not doing too badly. Quinton up into 7th place. Looks like he has cleared Trilogy despite the tire differential there. Humid 6.5 seconds back, so Humid seems to be struggling a little bit. I don't see any damage on that car, so I'm not sure entirely what's happening there. Silence also no damage. Doesn't look like he's gone to the pits with his time difference, so just not having the greatest race. Marsh out in front, 3.6 seconds up, is doing everything with those medium tires that he absolutely needs to do. 5 laps into the race, 6 laps into the, we're on to lap number 6, 5 laps into the race, and he has a 3.8 second lead over Scott Barreras. Scott Barreras just needs to be patient, just needs to not lose touch with him, and will have a decent run at the end of the race. Common now has DRS on Worm Puzzle, so this battle here, it has now become a battle for the podium. Worm Puzzle not running as quickly as he needs to, and is now at risk from the cars behind him. That McLaren seems to be running a little slowly, and you can see they're struggling to get through that corner, going very wide there, and that's given everyone an even bigger chance to get close to him. The guys do need to ride over that curb on the outside there and into the corner, throws that car into the corner nicely. Trilogy on the back of Quinton hasn't lost track there as well. Corsair, ooh, very close there, looking at the inside of the chicane. Not the usual place to try and pass there. I don't know if that was entirely intentional. Not the best place to try and pass, and can cause issues if you do end up in a situation where you end up side by side with another car through there, because those sorry about that. Oh, Elf saying that Bubbles is running 59th on the Steam leaderboards on this track. So, yeah, would have been great to see him running this track, but unfortunately, as I said, previous commitments. This race, this battle in front of us is still going on at the moment. Worm Puzzle out in front, Common in 4th, Venom in 5th, and Corsair in 6th, as Venom looks to the inside of that Williams, but doesn't quite get close enough for it, and that looked like they were very close on the exit of that corner. So Common not being entirely comfortable on the exit there, or possibly just delaying his exit a little bit, which would have forced Venom to lift off and would have broken his momentum a little bit, which should bring Corsair back into it. Corsair has lost touch a little bit, 8/10 of a second back, 9/10 of a second back, so battling to keep up to these guys. Oh, and Common spinning out there. Hopefully there was no contact there, but he now has pretty even damage on the front wing, so the car's balance left and right shouldn't be too bad. Almost turns in on Humid there. Humid gets through without any sort of issues, but Common running 13% damage on his wings at the moment. Both sides the same amount of damage, so not sure what happened there. If he maybe had an incident with Venom, I'm sure if there is an incident it will be reported, or hopefully will be reported, but Common having a problem there, down into 9th place from running in 4th position. So Venom now onto the back of Worm Puzzle. He now has some work to do, especially if there was contact there. There might be a penalty coming his way, so Venom has some work to do as he goes down the pit straight behind Worm Puzzle, follows Worm Puzzle off the line onto the dirty part of the track. Obviously the dirty part of the track in this game does not mean anything, so you can follow each other on there without too much of a problem. And Worm Puzzle running in 3rd place, going defensive now and trying to break the toe as they were going down the pit straight. Now going through the more twisty section, he just needs to hold the Trilogy still on the back of Quinton, not losing touch there. So Colin coming into the pits, I'm sure he will get his wing replaced. That looked a little bit quick, so no, he has had his wing replaced. There is no damage on that front wing anymore, so hopefully his pit crew managed to get that done. Marsh 5.6 seconds out in front. Scott still doing his thing in second place. Wormpuzzle 10 seconds back from the two of them. Venom and Corsair right on the back of Wormpuzzle. Quinton, a little bit of a gap between himself and Corsair. Starting from the back of the grid, up into 6th position already. Trilogy keeping touch with him. Maybe not fighting him as hard as he otherwise could, which is not a bad idea. He will be getting that DRS. His tires will be suffering a little bit as they go through, but yes, the Trilogy possibly just hanging behind Quinton, getting that DRS, getting the little bit of extra ERS, and just in general trying to keep touch as Wormpuzzle goes to the inside of Venom. Venom goes to the outside of Wormpuzzle, gets a better braking moment there, and now they are heading down towards turn number 2. And that is great wheel-to-wheel racing from the two of them. Very respectful. Corsair in the mix as well, trying to avoid any sort of contact, taking advantage of Wormpuzzle's compromised line through there, the defensive line, and taking the position as well. So Wormpuzzle losing 2 positions in as many corners, but great wheel-to-wheel racing there between Venom and Wormpuzzle, and Corsair as well. Showing exactly how it can be done around these tracks, and very well done there. Trilogy still 4/10 back from Quinton, so yeah, I do believe he is actually just letting Quinton tow him around this track. Just keeping up with him. He will be on a different strategy. He will be going onto the hard tires towards at the end of the race. So if he believes that the undercut will work better than the overcut, this is actually definitely the right thing to do. Just stay there, just follow. Quinton is pretty quick, and I'm sure we will see him get up even further. 2.2 seconds, and you can see the distance is coming down to those cars ahead, despite the fact that the cars ahead do have DRS. They are fighting each other, so Quinton just needs to bide his time a little bit, gain a 10th here, 10th there, and he will be fine. Marsh, yeah, he is quite gone. He is quite far out front. I wouldn't say he's entirely gone. I feel like Scott does have the strategy advantage here, and I think with the pace that we've seen Scott put in earlier in the quali session and in general, I think him being on soft tires in a lighter car will actually help him out quite nicely. Welcome to the chat, Danny Brandy. I see it is the first time you're in this chat, so welcome. Thanks for coming to join us. Corsair currently on the back of Venom, still sticking with that Alpine. They've been together since quite early in the race. Wormpuzzle dropping back a little bit, losing DRS now. Quinton 2 seconds back, so he's made up about 3/10 since the last time I looked at him. Trilogy still 5/10 back, just to get himself there. Inverter, yes indeed. I am running on an inverter, thank you very... Oh right, yes, I did hop and go do the inverter between the sessions, so yeah, we should be all good until the end of the race. 11 laps in already, or rather we're on our 11th lap, so this is 10 laps into the race already, and you can see Trilogy just deciding to keep behind Quinton. Another 2/10 up, so Quinton is definitely starting to pick up the pace. Wormpuzzle possibly falling off a little bit. Just checking their tire performance, similar tire performance, so Wormpuzzle possibly feeling a little bit ill at ease with the track now that he's no longer fighting the guys ahead. Venom and Corsair still very close together as well. Trilogy getting a 3-second penalty now, so I do believe it's Corsair, Trilogy and Humid with 3-second penalties. Let's go and have a look at the penalties. It's the other way, 3 seconds, 3 seconds, 3 seconds. So yeah, just 3-second penalties all around at the moment. Corsair, Trilogy and Humid, it looks like for the most part those are the only guys with lots of warnings. Quinton and Wormpuzzle are close though as well, so they're going to have to keep an eye on the track limits as well. But for the moment, some very close racing, and I'm sure we're going to see a lot of pit strategy coming into this. I'm really glad to see the guys keep staying as close as they are. I didn't expect it. This is one of those tracks that you can see great disparity between the racers, so great racing by everyone to just keep things together. Scott Barreras hasn't fallen back as much as I would expect him, so Marsh possibly finding those tires are falling off a little bit. Scott having fresher tires as far as their wear is concerned, obviously with the harder tires, did have a little bit of a moment there. And oh no, we have Venom in the wall, and that's some serious damage to the end plate of the front left of his wing. So Venom dropping down at 7th place. Corsair getting past once again. Hopefully that was not contact. No damage to Corsair's car, which generally is a consequence of front to rear contact. So hopefully not that. Worm Puzzle 1 second back, not quite close enough to get DRS. Quinton 1.2 seconds back. Trilogy has fallen back a little bit, so possibly having a little bit of an issue with the first step of the tire. Where sweeping turns really are tricky, and this this track is all sweeping turns. So yeah, no, not surprised that we are having issues with people spinning out a little bit here and there. Quinton's so close to getting DRS. Does he get within range at the DRS detection zone? Maybe. That was close enough. That was 9.9. There it is. DRS open. Well done to Quinton to get within that second at that very moment. 990 as they crossed there. So 10 thousandths of a second separating him from that DRS, and he managed to get it. Corsair having a spin, going back onto the track, Trilogy going straight through him. So yeah, Corsair, that third place seems to be a little bit cursed. Worm Puzzle having a massive issue earlier, dropping himself back into the range of everyone else. And then everyone who's held third place since then has had some sort of issue. Venom having that crash into the wall, 28% damage to his front left wing, which he is now getting replaced. Corsair now dropping as well with a spin too. So yeah, a couple of people having a problem with that podium, that third podium position. Scott Barreras 7.5 seconds back, 7.6 seconds back. He seems to be losing quite a bit of time in that third sector, and Marsh has fastest sectors all around. He does have his fastest lap is 0.6 of a second. That was interesting. Venom coming out of the pits and having an immediate moment going through the fast right-hander of turn 3. Ooh, that was a massive snap by Quinton. So Quinton maybe pushing a little bit hard behind his teammate there and having a little bit of a snap. His first step of tire wear should have hit as well. So possibly just getting used to how the tires are performing now. Those hard tires do change quite a lot as they do start to wear down. So I do believe, oh, we have a yellow flag, and that is, oh, I do believe that was just Silence coming out, staying out of the way for the guys on the lead lap. Silence, unfortunately, a lap down at this point. So, yeah, unfortunate there. Quinton taking interesting lines through there to try and possibly get past his teammate, decides to stay behind. Not the greatest place to pass. We have seen a couple of people in real life use that corner to pass, but not quite close enough by Quinton at the moment. So yeah, I think that if I recall correctly, the first step of tire wear is sort of between the 30 and 35 mark for the hard tires. So that gives you an idea of how these guys are doing. They are just past the first step, depending on which one you go for. And yeah, we should be able to see, well, we have seen a couple of snaps of oversteer from a couple of the guys who are on the hard tires. So let's just go back to tires from the panel, or from the no detail. Venom has pitted. Common has pitted as well. He did have that early damage, so that would be why he pitted. And Common getting past Gokes at the moment. Venom right on the back of Borak as well, so this is incredibly close. We'll keep an eye on the guys up in front. In fact, Corsair looks like he's going to go for a move on Trilogy, goes to the outside, Trilogy goes to the defensive on the inside. We see one of the Haas drivers has spun. I do believe that is Gokes, so not having a great evening after his power came back. Venom gets past Warwick on the little straight down towards the last couple of corners. So quite a bit of movement in general, and Quinton gets past Wimpuzzle. So a lot happening on that lap. It seemed like everyone was building up towards that lap, and once again we have a train behind number 3. So Quinton out in 3rd place, coming from the back of the grid. So great run by Quinton. Dandy, yes, yes indeed, and Marsh is doing exactly that, coming into the pits now. So Scott Barreras needs to push with everything he has on the remains of those hard tires. He has actually worn through quite a lot of those tires, so he has been pushing those tires as hard as they possibly can. He needs to push even harder now, and this is going to be interesting to see. We see Marsh leaving the pits now. A little bit of a slow pit stop, I feel. It felt a little slow, so as he comes out, we'll see how he's doing. I didn't take note of what the gap was before they came out, but it's now 12, 13, almost 14 seconds already. So quite a big loss in the pit lane for Marsh. But yeah, this track is not a massive loss in the pit lane. So because of how slow the track is in general, you can manage to keep quite a bit of the pit lane loss down, especially if there's a safety car or that sort of thing. But yeah, obviously that pit straight is the fastest point on the track, as it is so often. But there is a massive difference between the fastest point on this track and the slowest. So yeah, not a bad pit stop, but it did look a little bit slow. 7.5 seconds before the pits, so it's about a 21-second loss. It's not too bad as far as losses go, but I'm sure that is going. And we just saw Corsair going quite wide there, coming out of that corner. So Corsair is pushing a little bit too hard, possibly. Oh, and Wormpuzzle doing exactly what I just said and pushing way too hard there. Has cooked his tires a little bit. So are we going to see him head into the pits and get rid of those hard tires? Is he going to be the first of the hard runners to pit? I don't think he will be. I don't think it makes sense at this point unless there's a late safety car. And as the way everyone is running at the moment, I don't think that's going to happen. But yeah, people starting to get further into the life of these hard tires. Trilogy actually still running the mediums, and Trilogy and Warrack both are still on the mediums, on their original mediums. Trilogies are running quite worn at the moment, but he's still got another couple of percent to go before he gets to the sort of riskier area of that tire wear. So people starting to spread out a little bit. Quinton pulling away from Corsair and Trilogy. Corsair and Trilogy losing touch with each other after seeing them run so close to each other for so long. Wormpuzzle 4.3 seconds back after being involved in that fight as well. Humid not having a great race. It doesn't look like he's running any sort of damage, so not 100% sure what's happening with Humid and why he's having a little bit of a poorer race. Obviously had that spin into the first corner and hasn't seemed to recover since then. 7th at the moment after dropping all the way to the back. Not too bad, but Quinton definitely running a lot better. I just had a little boop in my ear. I believe that's just my... Oh, Marsh going fastest of all after his pit stop. So those hard tires, he's gotten up into the window, and that is going to show the pace of the hard tires, of what they are capable of doing. Headset is plugged in, so hopefully that little boop was just my headset telling me that it was running out of battery and not something other happening. But Corsair now into 4th position, right on the back of Quinton once again, and Quinton does look like he's lost a little bit of time to Marsh, but that is probably because Marsh has put in the fastest lap of the race, so 1:18.829. It is 9/10 quicker than Scott at the moment, but Scott obviously on those older hard tires with the more fuel at the beginning of the race, so the best of his tires have passed. He's not likely to be setting blistering sectors just yet. Last laps, let's see if I can see what the last laps were. A second between them on that last lap, so Marsh running a second lap quicker than Scott at the moment, so he is going to have a massive advantage. 21 seconds in the pits. That will be, what, 9 seconds ahead at the end. So as it stands, the undercut looks like it is working incredibly well. So Corsair and Quinton closest on the track at the moment. Venom has caught up to Humid as well. So Humid, or has he gotten past Humid? No, Humid has come into the pits. So Humid is on his outlap at the moment. So that might be why he is so close to Venom behind as they come into the final couple of corners, and Corsair and Quinton go through the first couple. Now coming towards turn number 2, Corsair goes to the inside nicely alongside as they hit the corner, hit the braking zone, and looks like Corsair has gained that position. That was an incredible move by Corsair, well done there on the brakes, and now up into third position, and let's see if he can maintain it. Obviously we have seen problems for the guys running in thirds up until Quinton, so Corsair just needs to keep his head. He had a good run through there. Quinton does look like he's losing some pace a little bit, so not sure what's happening there. Quinton definitely looks like he's losing pace a little bit. Humid is pulling away from Venom now as well, so the Alpine not quite fast enough to keep up with the Mercedes. Humid on those fresh medium tires so it is looking pretty good. We've got 16 laps until the end of the race. Is it 16? It is. Well, it's 15 now. So Marsh crossing the line. Scott Barreras has gone into the pits and comes out, as I said, about 7 seconds back. So that was that he must have pulled a couple of incredibly quick laps on those medium tires. I'm just looking at their last laps. 134 on his out lap, or 118 for Marsh. So good pit stop for Scott. Oh, and Corsair is on his pits, has gone into the pits, so that's why he dropped a couple of positions. Quinton back up into third place on those hard tires, so he is pushing a little bit further into the race. I wonder if he's going to consider going for a one-stop onto the soft tires. Humid gets the fastest lap of the race, a 118.372. That is substantially faster than the previous fastest lap, so Humid showing that he has pace now and he has work to do. He needs to catch up to Corsair first, 4.8 seconds at the moment, 4.7 as we talk about it, and very quickly catching up to the time of Corsair ahead of him. Silence is the Alfa Romeo on the map, who is between the two of them, obviously a back runner, so he is not going to affect things too badly. Maybe a little bit of dirty air, and Venom has unfortunately lost it around that corner once again. Venom does not like that corner. I don't know if he's maybe getting onto the outside curb a little bit too much and spinning there, but Scott Pereira is getting a fastest lap of the race now, 118.248, so about a tenth quicker than Humid's, and so we are starting to see the pace of these cars come out with 14 laps left to go. It is going to be starting to heat up, 6.5 seconds between Scott and Marsh. But obviously the age difference isn't really that big. Quinton and Trilogy coming into the pits, Trilogy getting ahead for a moment just because of where their pit boxes are. Corsair going through ahead. Let's see what Humid does. Humid is coming to the end of the pit straight now, so he does get ahead of Trilogy and now has Quinton ahead of him. So Quinton is fairly quick. Humid on 3-lap-old medium tires. He is within DRS, but won't get DRS this round because there isn't DRS until the end of the lap. So will Humid be able to maintain this gap? Will he be able to be patient enough to get through, or will he push to try and pass in a section of the track that's not necessarily ideal? Oh, and looked like almost contact there between the two of them. Humid having to get onto the brakes as he came out of there, and definitely you can see his frustration behind the car of that McLaren with these colder tires. But the McLaren's tires are likely to get up to temperature. They look like they're almost up to temperature already, as we have Venom has spun again, so Venom having a little bit of a problem. But back here, Humid, Quinton getting a 3-second penalty for track limits. Oh, Humid putting his nose where it did not belong, and having the door closed quite firmly on that front wing of his. But yeah, there was not sufficiently alongside to be entitled to space there at the turn-in point, and so being punished a little bit for it and falling back down to 0.7 of a second after being only 0.2 back. Worm Puzzle now in the pits, and he's going to be overtaken by Trilogy. Is Venom going to... No. Oh, right. Okay, so that is the Alfa Romeo once again. So Worm Puzzle comes out into 7th place. So we've got Marsh out in front, Scott Barreras in 2nd place. The two of them lapping very similar times 3/10 between the two of them. Scott Barreras a little bit quicker than Marsh even still. Corsair in third, 29 seconds back. So the two out in front are pretty much in free air. They can literally pit without any sort of problems. Quinton in fourth, Humid in fifth, Trilogy sixth, Wormpuzzle 7th, Venom 8th, Common 9th, Warak in 10th, and then Gokes and Silence 11th and 12th after a couple of issues for both of them. So Humid currently having dropped down to last place through the first corner, up into 5th. Quinton starting in the final position on the grid, up into 4th place. Trilogy has left the session, so I'm not sure whether he maybe has some sort of issue. I'm sure we'll see a request for a re-invite very shortly. But Humid and Quinton are right on top of each other, and they just need to be patient. Don't rush it. The Humid does need to learn a little bit of patience, does need to be a little bit more patient on the brakes, or a little bit more aggressive on the brakes if he wants to get through, and he needs to get alongside before he tries to shove his wing in there, and that is something that can catch him out, especially around this track. It's so easy to spin around this track in general, so if he does get his wing into a place where it shouldn't be, he can very easily be spun around. Quinton starting to get to grips with his medium tires, but Humid is pushing as hard as he can to keep up. 3 laps difference between the tire ages of these two, so it is getting incredibly close, and I can definitely see the difference in their tire wear. Humid wearing his tires incredibly quickly, in fact, and I wonder if we did see him have a little bit of spin, obviously, at the beginning of this race as well as in quali, so I wonder if that car is a little bit too twitchy and it's starting to wear its tires a little bit too quickly. It doesn't look like he's overheating them too much, but he is running right on the edge of overheats, whereas Quinton's tires are looking a lot fresher, a lot cooler, and it does look like he still does have quite a bit of Trilogy. Oh, right, of course, Trilogy having that disconnection. So, yeah, Quinton does look like he does have quite a bit of traction, but without the tire wear that we're seeing on Humid. Trilogy. I don't see Trilogy there, and Humid going to the inside, looking to the inside, shaking for a move for a moment, but Quinton not reacting to it, just keeping to his line, keeping the car, that McLaren, where it needs to be, and once again into turn 2, Humid deciding not to put his wing in there, and I think that is a good decision. Quinton does have a probationary tag over him at the moment, so he is having to race as clean as he can possibly do so, and he is doing a pretty good job so far. He hasn't caused any sort of accidents or anything that we've seen. He has generally been clean in most of the races that we have seen him in, but obviously that moment in the last race after Bunkis and him came together and then took each other out again. The details, obviously, you can watch the previous race to see what happened there, but yeah, after that, obviously, he did have a pretty harsh ban placed on him, but that has been removed, or not removed, but leniency has been shown, and he has been allowed to race here with that quali ban, but he's done well to get back up into 4th position. Humid 5/10 back, 6/10 back. I don't think he's close enough, and he didn't look like he got a very good exit, so using the DRS to try and get himself back into range, and now heading into through turn number 1 and down towards turn number 2. Humid, again, not quite close enough, so I don't know if Humid is struggling on those tires, if Quinton is maybe just pulling a little bit better as far as his usage is concerned. Just checking the ERS. The ERS isn't too much different, but yeah, definitely these guys are racing with everything they have. Humid does seem a little bit quicker through the second sector in general, and you can see there how quickly he catches Quinton going up that right-hander. I wonder if Humid is running a little bit more downforce than Quinton ahead of him, and that's maybe where the issue is coming in. That at the moment they get onto the straight where the downforce is not as important, Quinton is pulling away, and Humid with that higher downforce setup, I assume the higher downforce setup is maybe gaining time in the middle of the track, but then not having the pace down the straight, although he does seem to lose quite a bit of time in this third sector as well. It looks like he's doing a little bit better this time, 5/10 of a second going into the final corner, and then misses the apex. So Oh wait, no, he might have been setting up for the exit, and there is 5/10 of a second, but catching right away coming out of that corner. 4/10 of a second. Looks like he's got a decent amount of pace on Quinton this time. Just needs to stay behind him through this first corner. 4/10 of a second now. Dropped down to 3/10 for a moment, and now 3/10 once again, heading down towards turn number 2, and once again not able to get through. So that Mercedes is just not quick enough down that straight to make an easy pass on Quinton. And Quinton definitely defending as well as he can, knowing exactly where the passing points are. Human is going off the track quite a lot, so I wouldn't be surprised if he is indeed up against the warning threshold for another penalty. He needs to be careful, otherwise if he does get another penalty, this on-track battle may be for naught. Currently, both of them do have those 3-second penalties. So this is actually full position at the moment. Trilogy, welcome back. Let me re-invite you. Sorry, I didn't see you earlier. The battle on track. As you can see, Humid is looking at the back of Quinton. It looks like he's going to try it once again. So there is another invite sent to you. Oh, and Humid, a massive snap of oversteer coming out of their. Trilogy, welcome back to the lobby. You've lost a position at the very least, so hopefully you can get it back. 6 seconds though. It's going to be a big ask. 8 laps left to go as these guys cross the line. 2/10 back Humid is this time, and he is looking much better here. Let's actually ride on board and see what he does. Looks to the outside, looks to the inside. Ooh, that was close. And that was great positioning by Quinton, putting his car in the middle of the track, just not far enough from the edge of the outside of the track for Humid to get into that gap, and Humid having to go to the inside, going a little bit too late, getting onto the brakes too late, locking up, I do believe. It sounded like a lockup. Obviously, the game does sound like a lot of things locking up, so unfortunately not an accurate representation of whether there was actually a lockup there, but it definitely looked like there was from Humid's car's attitude. And yeah, Humid falling back down to 6/10 of a second now, so struggling a little bit to catch up and get past Quinton. Quinton is racing a great defensive race at the moment. Meanwhile, out in front, Hungary is indeed a fast Monaco. It is quite fun to watch. I do feel like there are more places to pass around here than in Monaco, and obviously there are fewer consequences for it as well if you do get it wrong. So yeah, I do feel like there are places to pass, but Humid has to maximize his exits, and he's not doing that at the moment. Might be getting a little bit frustrated, pushing a little bit too hard, burning his ERS a little bit too quickly. Oh, and Quinton taking a weird line through there, possibly trying to maximize the exit out of there and down into this faster section here. So yeah, Humid not maximizing his exits as much as he should be, trying to carry his cornering speed a little bit higher, and I think it is compromising his exit a little bit. Quinton getting a little bit too close to that curb there, and you can see 200s. Oh, a massive amount of time gained by Humid through there as Quinton makes a mistake through the chicane. So yeah, one of those tracks where you can very easily gain or lose time. This run down to the penultimate corner, or a penultimate couple of corners, is always quite nice place where you can get a good exit out of there. You can get a good run through there and try and get a pass on. Yeah, no, absolutely. Quinton is absolutely doing a great job there with his exits, with just his general racecraft as well, putting his car in exactly the right positions when he is worried about Humid getting close. And it does look like he's running a little bit more defensive now as well. He is running higher ERS than Humid. You can see Humid's red light, ERS charging light flashing as well. So Humid obviously does need to be careful because of that possible penalty. Quinton still has a couple of warnings to play with. Corsair, in fact, also needs to be careful of another penalty. So Quinton, if he can push a little bit harder, I'm not sure if he's got anything more in the tank, but if he can push a little bit harder and get within 3 seconds of Corsair, and Corsair does have that mistake, have a mistake later on, he might be able to get through there. Scott Barreras has fallen back about 5/10 of a second since the last time, or 7/10 of a second, since the last time I looked at him. So, but he is making some time up once again. That last lap, 8/10 between the two of them. Scott looks like he might be struggling on those medium tires. So yeah, Scott in the Ferrari on those medium tires. Marsh ahead of him on the hard tires. Marsh's hards looking at about the same as Scott's at the moment. So Venom now getting a 3-second penalty. Apology, sorry about your inverter, that really sucks. You were having a good race until that point, 7th position, not too bad, and you've completed, I think, enough laps that you'll probably still be classified wherever your AI finishes. But yeah, Humid out in 5th place, 5/10 back from Quinton as they go into the 30th lap. So 5 laps left to go from this point, and Humid is, I wonder if Humid's going to save up some of that ERS just for a last-ditch effort to try and get past there. Scott has been running a lot slower than Marsh at the moment on those last couple of laps, and Marsh pulling something out of somewhere and running a lot quicker than Scott on those last couple of laps. I think he does have the pace left. 31. So Marsh crossing the line. They can see each other. I can see that they can see each other. That must be so frustrating for Scott at the moment, but he is pushing as hard as he can. Those last couple of laps, those last couple of laps were looking a lot better. 400ths between the two of them. Scott 400ths back. Ooh, and that was a very wide line by Humid through there, possibly trying to maximize the exit there. As I said, he needed to earlier, and it looks like it has worked. 4/10 of a second, low 4/10 of a second, and Quinton gets on that ERS incredibly early there and gets down that start-finish straight. And you can see Quinton's light is starting to flicker at the moment as well. So the two, Humid, massive snap of oversteer there. His tires are looking quite worse for wear. Quinton, once again, those tire temperatures making a massive difference between the two of them. Humid trying to run a slightly smoother line, and I think that's what's giving him the exit speed, but possibly trying to push a little bit too hard, trying to getting a little bit frustrated with Quinton ahead of him, seeing that ERS light flashing on the back of Quinton's car and wanting to get closer, wanting to get there and try and get past with the extra ERS that he has saved up. You can see his light is no longer flashing. So Humid has saved up some ERS. Quinton has, looks like he has used up quite a bit of his ERS. So Humid must be salivating right now at the idea, or at the possibility of getting past here. The Haas getting out of the way and letting the lapped cars, the lapped Haas getting out of the way for the front runners to get through. Humid taking a better line through there once again and trying to open the entry on the last corner as much as possible, goes out as far onto that curb as possible and starts wheeling Quinton in as they head down on the 32nd lap, and quite close at the end of the straight, but not quite close enough. And I don't think Humid's going to try into turn 2 again and just yet, but he's inching closer, lap by lap by lap. He is figuring out how to get the most out of this Mercedes, but he does have incredibly high tire wear at the moment, and Quinton's tires are looking a lot better than his, and I'm sure we'll see that come into play towards the end of the race. But Humid is pushing incredibly hard now, and once again on that fast right hand uphill, Humid loses a little bit of time. So Scott Barreros is going into the pits with 2 laps left to go. He is going for that fastest lap point, I'm sure, and I'm sure we'll see as we if we go across. There it is, those soft tires. So Scott going for the fastest lap, has realized he's not likely to catch Marsh at their current pace. The last couple of laps, they're different. Oh no, Humid, that was a massive snap there for a moment, ghosting even. I'm not entirely sure what happened there, if that was maybe a little bit of a lag spike, but Humid, a massive moment coming through there at 8 tenths back now. Lap 33 of 35, 2 laps to go. Scott Barreras is on the soft tires, and I'm sure we're going to see him put a blistering lap in with those soft tires. I don't think Marsh won't have an opportunity to do the same, as he is coming to the final couple of corners. As he goes in, he might be able to do it on the last lap, so let's see if he decides to pit as well. No, decides to keep going. Doesn't want to gamble on the pit stop for that fastest lap. Obviously, Scott Barreras had the option of a free pit stop, and getting the fastest lap will get him an extra point, taking him up to 19 points as opposed to the 18 if he does manage to get the fastest lap, which I'm sure he will be able to. And we have a couple of people right on top of each other. There they are, Humid, Quinton, and the backmarker Hask. And Humid is right on top of the Quinton. How did that happen? That is really incredible to see. So Humid right on the back of Quinton now, once again, 3/10 of a second as they come into the... Ooh, and Humid once again pushing a little bit too hard and finding the back just wants to come around. He is into... he is actually into puncture risk. If those were soft tires, he should be able to run them to the end, as they are mediums, but he is killing those tires at the moment. And you can see it as he runs down the start-finish straight. Quinton still with that light flashing on the back of his car, still struggling with his ERS deployment. And Trilogy drops down once again. That is obviously because of his disconnect. But Scott, let's see how he is doing on these soft tires. Looks like a nice clean lap so far. As he throws himself into that fast right-hander, he'll come across the timing line 7. Oh no, Humid has gotten a 3-second penalty once again, and that is going to take away his chance of it's a 4th position at the moment. Scott Barreras comes into the final corner. You can see he's lifting, you can hear he's lifting and coasting quite a lot, but I think that might just be the nature of the track. Comes across the line at 117.214, which is 2 seconds faster than Marsh. It's about a second and a half faster than Marsh's fastest lap, so blistering lap there. I don't think that's going to be beaten by anyone else, but great lap there by Scott Barreras, accepting the 2nd position, going for the fastest lap just to get that little bit of extra point, and those points do add up towards the end of the season. So in a season where things are hotly contested, those extra points do mean a lot, and I'm sure that's why Humid is pushing as hard as he is, as well as they come onto the final lap of the race. Marsh already in the final sector. This is actually quite a short track, as you can see by the fact that there's 35 laps. Marsh already in the final sector. Ooh, Humid going very wide there. His tires are not going to be happy. Hopefully he doesn't have an issue. Corsair getting a 3-second penalty. And that is what I spoke about early. Marsh coming across the line in 1st position. Great race by him. Commanding lead for a lot of the race. But now we have a situation... Oh no, Quinton is way too far behind. And Humid going very wide there. Possibly cutting through the chicane there and trying desperately to get past it, even though it's not going to make a difference to the results. I'm sure Humid wants to get past it just as a matter of honor, and he is definitely struggling on those medium tires. I can tell you his tire wear at the moment, because it's not going to make a difference anymore. 68.2 on the front left tire. So Humid has murdered those tires, and he is coming into the pits. Is the pit lane quicker here? The pit lane is quicker. Or could have been quicker if Humid had managed to get it right. Possibly could have been a little bit quicker. 69% tire wear on that Mercedes. And comes across the line, and yeah, a sneaky little move there to try and get into the pit lane, which I think might be a little bit faster. I know that funny enough, the Silverstone pit lane is actually faster in the pit lane than outside of it. I'm pretty sure there has been a situation where someone did win by going into the pit lane rather than going through the final couple of corners, and I think it was behind a safety car as well. So finishing behind a safety car, went into the pit lane. Obviously there is no rule about about passing the safety car while in the pit lane, and managed to get the win by doing that. So some interesting choices there by Human, possibly just trying something different. Not the worst idea, but didn't work out this time. So with that, we bring the Hungarian Grand Prix to an end. It was actually a really great race to watch. Stuff happening all the way through. Quinton running an incredible race from the very back of the grid. Humid having that moment, dropping him to the back after the first turn. So a great run by Humid as well to get into 5th place. Those guys really doing well. Corsair having a moment as well early on and making the most of it as well into 3rd place with that final spot on the podium. Scott Barreras in 2nd. That great lap. You can see how much quicker that was than anyone else. A 117.214, and Marsh, a great strategy call. 118.646, his fastest lap, but that strategy call to go from the hards to the mediums, working out, it's from the mediums to the hards, working out at the end. Well done to Marsh for that commanding victory. Yeah, I will add you onto the WhatsApp group very shortly. Thank you so much to everyone in the chat for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure as usual, and thank you so much for joining us. We will check you next time, and obviously tomorrow I will be racing for the AM race tier. I'll see you on track as usual, and yeah, on Wednesday we will be watching the Pro-Am tier. So thank you so much for joining us once again. We'll see you tomorrow or the next day or next week, and stay safe, take care, and we'll check you next time.